Okay, this isn't The Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. This is the ambient noise of my videos when I'm filming, and I'm just about fed up with it, I'll be honest. What can I say? It's annoying. The thing that's actually making the noise is my network switch. It's an old 3-com piece of kit, very high quality, industrial grade, very high bandwidth. It's, you know, maybe not top of the line these days, but it certainly was. And as you can see, the audio meter on the desk is showing the level of my voice, and there we go, bit of quiet. You can hear the whine in the background. Now what I try and do in post-production is filter out that noise, but it does leave the audio sounding a little bit less natural than I'd like. And in deciding to go on YouTube and make YouTube videos, I've invested in some reasonable kit, and it's being let down by the ambient noise in my room. Now the switch is actually to the left of my workbench, it's underneath the workbench, and it's in a cabinet, and it's got lots of stuff packed around it to try and deaden the noise, and it's still incredibly noisy. Another pause for noise effect there. So what I've decided to do was bring back another switch that I used to use, and I was going to put that in. Now the reason I stopped using it was, again, noise. So let's bring it onto the bench, and we'll show you what it is. And I'll just move this back a bit because this is going to come in later. Let me just turn the lights down a touch so that you can see what type of switch it is, give you a quick focus on it. There we go. It's another 3-com piece of kit. It's a 16-port gigabit switch, and as I say, the only problem that I had with it was exactly the same as the problem I'm having with the one I've got at the moment in line. Here's the mains plug. Just bring the lights up a bit. Move that over to the back again. And when I plug this in, you can hear what my problem is. That's quite enough of that. So I didn't even need the meter in shot there for you to see that it's incredibly loud. So what I'm planning to do is reduce the volume of these fans by either taking them out or cutting the voltage to them. Now there's several ways I can do this. The first thing I'm going to do though is I will take this apart. Now I did actually have the screws out already because I have looked inside it and I did see what I was going to do, and here we are. We have the insides of said switch, and as you see, it's all pretty, but what causes the noise are these two let's bring it further into shot. These two incredibly noisy little 40mm fans, and they absolutely howl along. Now I can make it totally silent just by unplugging both fans, but that then leaves me with no cooling at all, which is not particularly good, especially not if it's in a cabinet. So a common way of reducing the voltage is to put in a resistor into the power line, and you know, that will just drop the voltage and waste half of it as a heat. And I don't particularly like that idea. The other idea I had was to actually, instead of running these two as individual fans, was to actually run them in series so that each fan only gets half the voltage, which will make them quieter. The only thing I didn't want to do was increase the load on the board itself. So I decided, in all my sort of infinite non-wisdom, to actually utilise one of those little Chinese kits I built in the Lunchtime Electronics series, and I'm going to put this board in here and mount it down, and this is actually a pulse width modulation control board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power this from the power supply and run the fans from these output ports, and that way I should actually be able to reduce the voltage of the fan without drawing any more voltage from this board than it did have originally. So each of these is rated at 150 milliamps per fan, so rather than draw 300 milliamps off the two sockets, I'll try and sort of keep it to even less, try and bring it down to 150 milliamps if I can. So I thought that would be a nice little board to put in there, and it's a fairly simple project and it's easy enough to do. I was actually contemplating building a separate controller for each fan. I did toy with the idea of making them thermally controlled, so actually put on these heat sinks here, put a thermistor, and then just have it so that it ramps up and down depending on the heat. But the whole point of this is to go for quiet, and if it ramps up and down, it's not going to be quiet. Now you can still hear the other switch in the background, and unfortunately I won't be switching that off yet, because if I do, I'll get shouted at by the children for dropping the network out. So I'm going to have to wait until I get a quiet moment. They're all asleep, and I'll change them over eventually. But for now, I can get this switch ready. So it's just a little job. They do make silent switches these days. A lot of the domestic stuff doesn't have any sort of fans in at all. A lot of the domestic stuff doesn't have the throughput of one of these, which is one of the reasons I buy commercial grade kit, because it tends to work a lot better than domestic stuff. So without further ado, I suppose I'd better prepare these fans. What I was thinking of doing though was keeping the motor sense wire actually attached to there. Now, because this is an unmanaged switch, I don't believe it actually looks at the motor sense wire, so it doesn't go in fault condition. But that's something I'll have to sort of look at and experiment with. Realistically, all I need to do is chop the positive and negative off of the fan, which is actually the red and the black, and the same on this one, and wire them into here, and then take a supply from here and just power it over. I'm going to stick this down with double-sided sticky tape. It doesn't need anything more fancy than that. I'm going to use the thick foam one and just plonk it in that space there, which is just nice. So let's get the cutters out and let's start snipping, shall we? The soldering iron's warmed up, so what I want to do is well, rather than snipping it, I could actually use my super duper kit of Chinese pin removal tools, if I can get them off the wall. There we go. And figure out which one I need. There's all sorts of little spiky things here which you just run down the slot. Or is it up that way? No, it's that way. And you just push down the pin at the back like that, and they should come out of the socket. Come on. There we go, like that. And we'll do the same for that one. I don't want to completely ruin the cabling, because if I ever want to put it back to standard, or if I find that the thing overheats, I want to be able to put it back to how it was. So at the moment I'm just taking these off. Now I'm going to take the third one off so that I can get this piece of tubing off and actually cut it in half basically. And I'm only doing one at a time so that I can remember which way round the connector goes. So let's see if we can pull this one off without, see, it won't even fit through there, not unless I do an individual wire at a time. So let's try yellow first, see if I can pull that one back and make it go through, and pull the black one a little bit further down. And see if I can then get them out like that. You can see it's been pinched somewhere, or that's how they're clamped together. Is that going to work? No, that's not going to work, is it? What I'll do is I'm just going to pull them forward, get the cutters and snip them like that. Then I can pull the red and the black out, and pull the yellow, push the yellow one back if I can. I'll find the end of the plug. There we go. And then I can put the, where's the connector? Put the, just lift up the tab a little bit at the back so that it will lock in again. And it's that way round. Yellow one is the end one, so yellow one goes in there like that. And I'll do the same with this, although I won't bother taking them apart. I'll just snip them off like that, and then hopefully I should be able to get to the red and the black wires. There's the red, and the black. So that's that. Let's move them over to there so I can actually plug these back onto the board for the moment. Keep them out the way. Well, sort of, do I need to keep them out the way? Keep them out the way for a moment like that. And all I need to do is get the two blacks together. As I say, I'm trying to keep them sort of fairly standard. So I'm just going to twist them together. And yep, like that. And strip them off. Let's find the negative on the board. Voltage, 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 motor negative there. Where's my little screwdriver now? There it is. So that's the black wires. Do the same with the reds. Now, for some reason these wires seem to, oh that's right, because one's coming from the top and one's coming from the bottom. Just twist them together like that. If I wanted to do a super duper professional job, I'd put heat shrink on them and put them in tubes and, you know, just basically, you know, do everything super duper, but at the moment I'm just doing this bit to make sure that it still works. Okay, so that's pretty much what I need to do for there for the moment. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring along my power supply. Let me just turn that on and make sure we've got 12 volts. And I'm going to connect it up to, right, that's positive. So these terminals are a little bit crap, to be honest. So that's going to short everything out, isn't it? Let me get my screwdriver and just split them apart a bit more. Right, positive and negative. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? I'll try and get them to stay on the pins. So now the board's connected. The problem I've got, let's just turn it up full. That's where we get the normal fan noise, but as I turn it down, we get more into the singing of the pulse width. Now the fans aren't stalling, they're still running, but you get that awful pulse width noise that comes along with it. So I think in reality I'm going to not use pulse width modulation, and I think I'm going to go back to the good old-fashioned let's run it in parallel, in series, and see what that sounds like. So let's disconnect this like that. Let's just undo these, and just for an experiment we can run it off the power supply. Now all we need to do is get one red and one black and twist them together. So that the red from one, now if I've done the right ones, that is. If I've done it wrong, it's going to be at full speed on a single fan, but I haven't. I've done it right, and it's now at half speed on both fans. I'm still getting plenty of airflow, and looking at the power supply, I'm only getting a consumption of 30 milliamps, so I can easily draw that off the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to permanently wire these in as a pair like that and run it off. So what I'll do is, rather than do it on camera, I will do all the soldering and everything else, and just bring you back once I've put it all back together and you can see what I've done. See you in a bit. Okay, so there we are. I've zoomed in a little bit, and just to show you what I've done, I've fed the first red wire back into this plug, and it goes through. The output of the first fan goes to the input of the second fan. In fact, it's going this way round. This is the first fan, this is the second fan, and so the output of this comes out of the black into the red, into this fan, and back onto the board here. The board, these are actually common grounds, so it doesn't really make a difference, and also these positives seem to be commoned up as well, so I'm not worried really about the current consumption. You know, it's still nowhere near as fast as it was. As you can see, the fans are, I don't know if you can see actually, I can't see. Let's see if I can get some light on the fans for you. They are both spinning, the power is on, and if I hold it up to the microphone, you can just about hear that little ticking noise of the fans over the whine of the other switch. So yeah, I know that doesn't look pretty on camera, does it? Yeah, so if I hold it up to the camera like this, let's come back out again. You can hardly hear this against the whine of the switch in the cabinet down there. So there you go. What I thought was going to be, you know, a technical solution turned out to be one of the most basic solutions, and just, you know, run two fans in series rather than having them paralleled up. But it certainly quietened it down, and I'm going to put that in the cabinet at some stage in the next day or so, and hopefully future videos will not have the noise that I have to filter out. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, even click the little bell icon if you want to get reminders of future upcoming videos. Thanks very much. Bye for now.